Young Turks, Kasparian and John Iadarola with you. John Iadarola was supposed to be on Cuomo last night.
I was supposed to be.
He got bumped because of the impeachment.
Yep.
By the way,
Trump and his crimes.
I thought that the impeachment coverage was gonna be them doing their regular show, but the entire theme was impeachment, but no, they just aired.
A lot of it was that, yeah.
Yeah, so, but we're gonna get you on soon.
We'll see.
We'll see, yeah.
We'll see.
But anyway, we do have impeachment related news for you later in the rundown. I thought that it was important to start off today's show with some updates to stories that we previously covered about the Democratic debate. Later on, we'll also give you an update on TYT Investigates and the reporting on Pete Buttigieg. A giant thank you to our audience when it comes to that story, and I'll tell you why a little later. But you know what? Without further ado, why don't we get started?
Let's do it.
All right, so. As we shared with you yesterday, Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden were in the middle of an embarrassing feud, not for Bernie Sanders, mostly for Biden. And it was because one of Bernie Sanders' surrogates, Zephyr Teachout, wrote an op-ed in The Guardian calling out Joe Biden's corruption and how money in politics led to him making terrible policy decisions that really did hurt the middle class in America. Now, of course, the establishment was angry about the fact that their beloved Joe Biden was called out on his record. And so Bernie Sanders, in my opinion, made a mistake in apologizing. And my opinion on that is going to be reinforced by the update to this story, which is same night that Bernie Sanders issued that apology to Joe Biden put out this disgusting attack ad against Bernie Sanders.
As Democrats, we can't launch dishonest attacks against fellow Democrats. We have to beat Donald Trump. Now Bernie's campaign has unleashed a barrage of negative attacks on Joe Biden. They've even accused Joe Biden of supporting Paul Ryan's cuts to Social Security. Bernie's campaign is not telling the truth. Joe Biden has repeatedly voted to save Social Security. He and President Obama beat back Republican attempts to privatize it. And in 2012, Joe Biden even said he didn't support those cuts to Paul Ryan.
We will be no part of a voucher program or the privatization of Social Security.
Biden's plan protects Social Security and will increase benefits. Bernie's negative attacks won't change the truth.
Look, there are so many lies in that ad. First off, privatizing Social Security is different from cutting funding to Social Security. So in many cases, Biden did attempt to cut funding for Social Security, and I'll give you the evidence for that in just a second. But I do want to quickly focus on how it's a terrible idea to cave to the demands of people like Joe Biden and individuals who support Biden, because they're not honest actors and they're not looking to run a clean race. And so what Teachout wrote in her op-ed was accurate. There was nothing in there that was inaccurate. Bernie Sanders is not running a dirty campaign at all. And what the Sanders campaign released in the form of a statement following that Biden ad was absolutely right. They wrote, Joe Biden just released the first negative campaign ad of the 2020 Democratic primary, and let's be clear why. He's trying to distort his decades-long record of proposing and voting for cuts to Social Security benefits for millions of people. Joe Biden is no defender of Social Security, and a negative ad won't help him outrun his record.
So I didn't like that he apologized too, because for two reasons. One, as a general rule, first of all, as a progressive, I want people to apologize if they think that they should apologize, or like in a relationship to smooth things over. Those are two good reasons to apologize, if you're wrong or if you're in a relationship. But in terms of politicians apologizing, the only research I've seen that have looked into that show, there is no benefit to apologizing. Like they looked at tons of different politicians apologizing for things justifiably, unjustifiably. People don't care, they don't give you any, like there's no benefit to it. And for Bernie Sanders especially, what are they gonna be nice to him afterward?
Of course they're not.
They're definitely not going to.
And the problem with the apology is that it negates actual evidence-backed arguments about Biden and what he stands for, right? And I don't want that to happen because no one lied about Biden's record. Biden's record is open. Well, yes, Biden has lied about his record, but the information is out there. It's open to the public. We're gonna get into some of those details in just a minute.
Can I say one other thing?
Of course.
And this is so common in these ads. But did you notice the two things they were trying to say in that ad? It was like Bernie said he attacked us and he said we were dishonest. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be beating Trump instead. You dishonest Bernie, we hate you, you're awful. Like it's this whole thing where they constantly, it's like they're trying to get you to hit yourself effectively. And they're trying to pretend that like your fist is, your face is hurting my fist. How dare you fight me like this?
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think that this was a similar strategy that Bernie's camp experienced in 2016. However, things are different this time around when it comes to how the Bernie camp reacts to it, responds to it, and tackles it. I think that they're better suited to deal with these types of attacks from establishment Dems, and nothing makes that clearer than the rapid response from Bernie Sanders' campaign after Biden released that ad. So let me just say, Salty Bernie is personally my favorite Bernie. And so in a tweet he wrote, "Let's be honest, Joe. One of us fought for decades to cut Social Security, and one of us didn't. But don't take it from me, take it from you."
I wish he made clear which it was. I'm confused still.
Well, he included his campaign ad on Biden, and here's what it looked like.
When I argued that we should freeze federal spending, I meant Social Security as well. I meant Medicare and Medicaid. I meant veterans benefits. I meant every single solitary thing in the government. And I not only tried it once, I tried it twice, I tried it a third time, and I tried it a fourth time.
Well, we've got some bad news for them. We are not gonna cut Social Security, we're gonna expand benefits.
There were no lies. It is perfect, it's concise, and it's 100% accurate, backed up by facts. In fact, we'll get into some of those facts right now. There was a tweet by someone that goes by the handle Cancel Sam. If you're interested in Bernie Sanders related news, you should follow him because he does bring back some videos from archives showing what Bernie has done in the past, what he stands for. And remember, in 2013, under the Obama administration, Democrats were engaged in what was referred to as a grand bargain. Republicans wanted cuts to what they referred to as entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare. And what Democrats wanted in return was an increase in taxes, right? Now, luckily, this all it didn't work out. And the reason why it didn't work out is because Republicans were unwilling to raise taxes at all. However, Obama and Joe Biden were willing to cut these programs. They were very open and honest about that. So Cancel Sam wrote in a tweet, "I'm old enough to remember 2013 when Joe Biden tried to cut Social Security in a grand bargain with the GOP. I also remember seeing Senator Sanders outside the White House in 2013 leading the fight against Biden's Social Security cuts." And he also embedded a video showing that. Yeah. We found a fuller version of the video, and I wanted to give you a little taste of what Bernie was up to in 2013 while Biden was trying to cut Social Security.
Tens of millions of workers, seniors, disabled vets who are saying loudly and clearly, we are not going to balance the budget on the backs of the elderly, disabled vets, the sick, the women, or the children. When 1 out of 4 major profitable corporations pays nothing in federal income taxes, we know how we can deal with deficit reduction in a way that is fair. Now, some of you may remember that when Barack Obama was running for president in 2008, he said that he would not cut Social Security. We want the president to remember what he said and not go back on his word.
Let the record speak for itself.
Yeah, and obviously there are a lot of politicians being really dishonest about what they actually want and actually support there. But even if you took everyone at their word, that whole grand bargain is everything that was wrong with the Democratic Party,
and continues to be,
and is everything we're worried Biden would represent if he became president. Like, think about what they were saying there. The GOP wanted to do something deeply unpopular, like almost like uniquely unpopular. Cut these programs that everybody loves. Okay, so they want something that if they advocate for it should cause them to lose elections. And in return, the Democrats are like, okay, we'll share the blame for this super unpopular thing if you just give us this thing that people would elect us in droves if we promised.
Right.
We want to raise taxes on the wealthy. Everybody wants that. In return, we're going to cut these programs that everybody loves. You morons, just run elections on raising the taxes, get a super majority, and then you don't have to give them literally anything. And if they want to try to run midterm elections around cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, you can let them try. Let's see how that is as a strategy.
Right, look, for the longest time, I would get frustrated at Democrats, corporate Democrats specifically, because we're not like brilliant people, you and I, right? Like we're normal, average people, and we see what's going on, and we're like, but why don't they use a strategy that works? Why are they purposely hurting themselves? And it's because they get paid to, John.
That's why I said people are being dishonest about what they actually support.
Right, exactly. So we have to stop analyzing the motivations of corporate Democrats as if they're using logic or any type of rationality in these actions. They're making these decisions based on who's supporting their campaigns and funding them, right? And those wealthy donors want cuts to programs like Social Security and Medicare. They want to privatize Social Security because they hate the fact that they look at their paychecks and they see a portion of it going toward a retirement program that they don't feel like they need.
And for what?
Who cares about everyone
so that
else?
Senior citizens don't starve. Buh.
It's disgusting, right?
It is, it is. That's why it's so popular.
So when I say that I'm gonna get into details and give you evidence to back up what we're saying, I mean it. So I'm gonna go ahead and cite some of the excerpts from Ryan Grimm's excellent reporting in The Intercept. He wrote, quote, Biden has been advocating for cuts to Social Security for roughly 40 years. And after a Republican wave swept Congress in 1994, Biden's support for cutting Social Security and his general advocacy for budget austerity made him a leading combatant in the centrist wing battle against the party's retreating liberals in the 1980s and 90s. Biden's fixation on cutting Social Security dates back to the Reagan era. This is very important, guys. One of Ronald Reagan's first major moves as president was to implement a mammoth tax cut tilted toward the wealthy and to increase defense spending. Biden, a Delaware senator at the time, supported both moves. Biden actually teamed up with Iowa Republican Senator Chuck Grassley to call for a freeze on federal spending and insisted on including Social Security in that freeze, even as the Reagan administration fought to protect the program from cuts. Imagine that, being more right-wing than the Reagan administration when it comes to these programs.
You're Reagan socialists.
Yeah,
basically.
This is what the truth is. And so people like us will share the facts, we'll do it calmly, and what's the response to that? Oh, these are Bernie bros, they're vicious, they're running dirty campaigns. No, this is not a dirty campaign. This is based on policy, it's based on Biden's record. This is fair game in a primary election. And if corporate Democrats don't like it, maybe they should ask themselves why they support disgusting votes like this and advocacy to cut government programs that people need and like.
Yeah, and what we could have, hypothetically, is Joe Biden could say, okay, yes, look, back during the 80s and the 90s, I supported some stuff that now, oh boy, it looks bad. But I'm totally changed. And look, even under Obama, I was saying don't privatize it. I'm implying that says that I didn't want any cuts. It's not the same thing, but that's what I'm implying. And I have changed and I want to expand it now. And then we could debate, is he credible when he says that he's changed? I wouldn't believe him, but he could make that case. But he's not saying that. He's saying, don't believe my lying words. He's saying, no, I didn't do any of that stuff. I didn't say any of that stuff. I never supported these things that I'm on record supporting, which means that we don't just get to have a discussion about whether or not we trust you in terms of your evolution over the time. It's that you are proving yourself day after day as more and more follow-up questions are coming to be an unrepentant liar on this issue. And when you have all of these other huge red flags in your record around bankruptcy and the Iraq war and those sorts of things, all of which you've denied you've never had a bad vote if you're Joe Biden, according to him, it's just this pattern of lying that is without precedent in the Democratic primary.
Exactly. And I do want to read a comment from one of our members. You can become a member and support this show by going to tyt.com/join. Nick writes in and says, if Bernie didn't denounce Teachout's op-ed, he would look like Liz when she didn't denounce the sexist leaks last week. Now people are talking about Joe's corruption and Bernie stays above the fray. This will help Bernie. Bernie is a pacifist. He can't turn the other cheek only when it's politically convenient. Bernie has been right for 40 years. I trust he made the right decision this time too. So Nick has a little bit of a different perspective than we do. I think it's important for Bernie to be careful in how he deals with dishonest actors in this race. Biden happens to be one of them, because the second that Bernie put out that statement, it's on video, saying that Biden's my friend, I don't believe he's corrupt. I mean, what did Biden do? He immediately went and attacked him. Now, ultimately, is this gonna make Bernie Sanders look like the good guy? Sure, it worked out, but you can't depend on things working out the way that they did this time. Like, yeah, I think that I don't think that Bernie's weak, but I do think that it can be perceived as a weakness if he apologizes for things that he has no business apologizing for.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's rough to be Bernie. He's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't in virtually everything.
Yeah.
I will say though, I don't think they made that ad after they saw the Biden ad. Clearly they were preparing to turn it back on him.
And that's the point I was trying to make earlier. I think that Bernie's campaign is very different this time around. It's a well-oiled machine. I think the messaging has been on point. I think that the ads have been on point. I think the organizing has been on point. They're doing a great job. And I think this is the reason why you're seeing Bernie rising in the polls. He's now in a statistical tie. There's a new CNN poll showing that nationally, Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden are in a statistical tie. And he just keeps doing better and better. So keep going, keep fighting, and just something to think about as we go to break. When we come back though, infuriating discussions on The View.
Since when?
The only reason why we cover this is because I think it's important to debunk these common talking points that we hear about progressives. We'll be back.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment.
I love these tweets in the TYT live section, so I'm gonna read as many of them as I can. Gabby Marita writes in, again, use the hashtag TYT live during the breaks or whenever you wanna tweet to us, and hopefully we'll get a chance to read what you have to say. Gabby Marita says, I don't want Anna Kasparian to be Bernie Sanders' press secretary. I do. By the way, Brianna, his current national press secretary, is incredible, and so she deserves that role. But in a perfect world, we could both have a position like that. But anyway,
alternate days.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I want Anna to be Bernie Sanders' administrator of SALT, wherein SALT stands for Salty Armenian Lobbying Truth. I like it.
And there will be no SALT treaty.
Eclectic Miscellanea says, I think we can all agree now that the House should pursue a third article of impeachment against Trump. His trial preempting John Iadarola's appearance on Cuomo.
I know, it was egregious, it was personal, and deeply offensive to American democracy.
Real Time writes in and says, apologies validate your opponent, speaking about Bernie's apology to Biden. That's why there is so many non-apologies which settle the matter without a real apology. And Seth Jones says, salty Bernie is Anna Kasparian's spirit animal. Bernie is my spirit animal.
Like, salt or otherwise. Yeah, the only place where I think an apology actually would have mattered is I think it could have solved a lot of problems for Kevin Hart. That's really about it. Other than that, we should be in a society where if someone does something wrong, they admit it, and then rational, understanding people are like, I admire you doing this. It shows humility and growth, and we value that. Except no one has that level of self-analysis, and we don't actually value humility or growth. So none of that works ever. And so it incentivizes people to either not apologize or give BS self-serving apologies.
I love talking about incentives with you because you and I have the same frustrations about what gets incentivized in American culture. All right, a quick announcement about something that I'm super excited about. You know when you go to like a restaurant and it's like one of those fancy restaurants, you order a glass of wine and then like the waiter comes and they pour you a little sippy sip, a little tasty taste and you pretend like you know what's going on. We want to go to a restaurant like that with one of you guys. And the way that we can make that happen is if you enter to win the Aspiration sweepstakes. So go to tyt.com/dinner in LA and it'll have all the details necessary to enter the sweepstakes. The winner will get to have dinner with me, John, and Cenk in Los Angeles. You'll be flown out to LA and put up in a nice hotel. Just go to tyt.com/dinner in LA. At that point, you sign up for a free Aspiration spend and save account. And the great thing about Aspiration is that it's a financial institution that will not invest your money in any shady corporation, including fossil fuel companies. At that point, though, you need to register your eligibility, okay? You're not gonna be entered into the sweepstakes until you do that. And then at that point, you just swipe, right? And every time you swipe, you're like entering into the sweepstakes, right? So the more you swipe, the higher your chances of winning.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited because we get to pretend like we know what good wine tastes like together.
I do it with soda. Nice bouquet.
I taste a little bit of peach. That's what I do.
And as always, we just give you win-wins. Like whether if you win, that's a win. But even if you lose, like you're doing something better with your money and for your conscience than you are right now.
Yep. Okay, Brett.
Oh God, I can't hear him, so I don't know.
Brett's like, we do news on this show. You ready to move on?
It was like a 6-second comment.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on.
Oh, now we're wasting time, and I have no intentions of stopping. No, because now I'm gonna start to make her mad.
All right.
Anyway,
well, let's talk about what happened on The View yesterday and today. So. There was a giant kerfuffle in regard to Hillary Clinton making some ridiculous comments about Bernie Sanders. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, she said, quote, he was in Congress for years, he had one senator support him, nobody likes him, nobody wants to work with him, he got nothing done, he was a career politician, it's all just baloney, and I feel so bad that people got sucked into it. Now the ladies of The View had some thoughts on what Hillary Clinton had to say about Bernie. And the conversation is infuriating for a number of different reasons. Yes, I support Bernie Sanders, but it's actually not I'm not furious because of that. It's more about the fact that these are women whose sole job is to be informed in their commentary on these topics. Yes. And they know nothing about what's going on. And it's certainly clear in the video you're about to watch.
After this weekend of really a lot of, what do you call them, the faux pas?
Faux pas. A lot of faux pas.
He was faux pas-ing everywhere. You know,
really was.
Yes, I mean, you know, the Bernie bros were catching him. I mean, he had to
apologize several times.
Yes.
Yeah, stupid
so
things.
I mean,
and by the way, I would like to take The View started this. Like we said like we're not feeling Bernie, and we got a lot of heat for it. And all of a sudden, it feels like a lot of people in the media and voters are following. And this Bernie bro problem that she's talking about, she was patient zero when it comes to it. And again, the Bernie bros did a lot of damage to her. And I think going forward, you shouldn't underestimate their power and what they could do specifically to female candidates.
But you don't underestimate Hillary Clinton's power. She still has it. She won by 3 million votes.
I wouldn't.
Absolutely.
People still like her. And you know what? After that Howard Stern interview, we've seen the true Hillary. And I think she's fabulous.
So look, again, it was frustrating because it almost feels like they watched a few cable news segments, didn't do any reading, didn't do any investigating into like what the issues really are, and just decided to go along with this corporate media narrative. And it's pathetic because there should be at least one person on that panel who knows what's going on and can shed some light on the reality. But when it came to this discussion, no. First of all, when Hillary Clinton said what she said about Bernie, obviously there's gonna be some backlash because you wanna talk about likability? I mean, you lost to the dumbest and least likable presidential candidate of all time, right?
Yeah.
And people will come at you with, oh, well, she won the popular vote. But no, she should have blown him out of the water when it came to the Electoral College.
Yep.
That's how incompetent Donald Trump is. So because of the backlash, she put out a tweet trying to poke fun at the whole situation, saying, I thought everyone wanted my authentic, unvarnished views. But to be serious, the #1 priority for our country and world is retiring Trump. And as I always have, I will do whatever I can to support the nominee or our nominee.
We'll see about that.
We'll see about that. Now, the reason why she released that statement was because in the context of the Hollywood Reporter interview, she was asked, if he's the nominee, if Bernie's the nominee, do you plan on supporting him? And she just said, I'm not ready to go there yet.
Yeah, implying that she doesn't really know if it's better to have a second Trump term or Bernie Sanders. And I know a bunch of really diehard Hillary Clinton supporters tweeted after that, oh, come on, does anyone really think she won't support the Democrat?
Yes.
And my response is, first of all, maybe. But even if I agree with you, then that makes it even pettier for her to pretend that she can't tell. If it's so obvious, then just say that.
Bernie Sanders threatens her wealth and any other incredibly wealthy person's money, right? And so look, Trump is a terrible person. He's an incompetent president. He's a disaster. But the one thing that he's delivered on that establishment or corporate Democrats love is the tax cuts. I mean, he got help from Democratic Congress members in passing his tax cuts. And so if they have to choose between a monster like Donald Trump that who doesn't threaten their wealth, and Bernie Sanders, who certainly does, well then they're gonna, in my opinion, they're not gonna say it publicly, but I don't think they're gonna vote or support Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, look, I think that most of them will, but support can mean a lot of different things. I mean, look, technically Hillary Clinton supported Obama in 2008 after he beat her, but she did but depending on how you measure it, 1/3 to 1/4 as many events for him as Bernie did for Hillary in 2016. So sure, she'll support Bernie if he becomes the nominee, but what does that mean? She's gonna send one sort of snarky tweet, or is she going to work her butt off the way Bernie Sanders did to try to get her elected? And just really fast to that View clip that we saw, I'm not a huge View viewer or whatever, but I believe that the idea is supposed to be that this is an idealized, better version of the sorts of conversation that any random 4 women would have around the country. But sometimes it's just the same as any 4 women. It's the same as any 4 regular people trying to keep up with the news. They read a little bit of this, they saw a tweet or something, and that's really it. And most of the commentary there is dominated by Meghan McCain, a person who has been so rewarded for her just sort of mediocring her way through life, pretending that she cares what happens to the Democratic Party. She would be happy if between now and the day she dies, a Democrat never wins the presidency again. So every time she gives you a bit of advice for the Democratic Party, remember, she wants all of them to go down in flames.
Right, and she's in no position to give anyone advice because she doesn't know what she's talking about. So in the clip that we showed you, she's like, can I just mention that we here at The View, we're the first in saying that no one likes Bernie, right? So she's bragging about that. But if you look at evidence, the facts don't bear out that Americans dislike Bernie Sanders. In fact, let's talk a little bit about some new polling today.
I was hoping you would.
Yeah, so there's always this debate about electability. We need a Democrat that's super electable and who can beat Trump. Well, a new poll indicates that the person best suited to beat Donald Trump is Bernie Sanders. So Survey USA asked 4,069 registered voters nationwide how they would vote in an election today if Trump was pitted against each of the 2020 candidates in the Democratic race. The progressive Vermont independent, Bernie Sanders, came out on top. So 52% of voters would choose Sanders and 43% Trump, giving the veteran senator a 9-point lead. Next was former Vice President Joe Biden at 50% to Trump's 43%, a 7-point lead. So Bernie Sanders actually outperforms Biden in this poll,
yes.
right? Up against Trump. Let me give you some more details though. Tom Steyer is tied with Trump at 44%. And also Democratic Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar loses to Trump. I mean, that should be a big story, no? Loses to Trump by 2 points at 43%. To 45%. Democratic Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard loses to Trump by 5 points at 39% to 44%. I think
was Buttigieg on there?
Buttigieg was on there, but everyone beats Trump, obviously with Bernie leading with a larger margin. Except for Klobuchar, Steyer, and Tulsi Gabbard. So even Yang beats Trump, but with a smaller margin than Bernie. The person best suited to beat Trump is Bernie Sanders. So then there's this new CNN poll, which shows that Bernie Sanders is now in a statistical tie with Joe Biden at the very tippy top, okay? So 27% of registered voters who are Democrats or Democratic-leaning independents back Sanders, while 24% favor Biden. The margin between the two is within the poll's margin of sampling error, which means that they're at a statistical tie. All right, now both are significantly ahead the rest of the field, including Senator Elizabeth Warren at 14% and former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg at 11%. Former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg lands at 5%, while Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar and businessman Andrew Yang each hold 4%, right? So Sanders has actually gained 7 points since the last CNN poll, okay?
Man.
So he's doing really well, but like, we were the first to talk about how no one likes Bernie Sanders. Okay, so let's hear more from this ignorant conversation.
I think it's very important for people to note that Bernie registered to run for the Senate in 2024 as an independent, yet is running as a Democrat for the president. He is a Democrat by default. By default. And
well, you really
need to understand that.
You want him out.
They just need to understand that.
But this has been my bitch with people running who are socialists, and I love socialists. But if you're a socialist, find other people, find your party, people in your party to support you. Don't say you're a Democrat and then try to poop all over the Democratic folks. That's they're spouting what they believe. If you believe what you believe, then run as where you are. Let us see you. And if we like what you're saying, then people will vote for you. But you can't say you're one thing and then pretend to be something else and just people point you out.
I love the socialists too. I've slept with several.
I think that conversation, it's supposed to represent the types of political discussions that occur among women in America. And I think that conversation degrades women. I think that it belittles our intelligence and our sophistication, and I'm embarrassed by it. And honestly, I'm disappointed in Joy Behar. What is she doing?
Look, she was kind of, I guess, trying to goof around or something. I'm more frustrated with Whoopi Goldberg there, especially on a show where Patrick Stewart comes on and says that she might be invited on the second season of Picard, which got me all excited. And then she goes and says that. Like the sense of entitlement there, it's something about Star Trek. The sense of entitlement there that the Democratic Party is whatever we say it is, and how dare you imply that it's something else, even on a day where you are leading, implying that maybe Democratic voters don't agree with you on what the identity of the party is or should be. And how can a poll like that, it's not a random nobody poll, it's a CNN poll. How can that come out and they don't mention it? It's a morning show, but that poll was available. How are you gonna come on after a week of, or a day of saying Bernie Sanders is unpopular and then double down on a day when evidence comes out that directly refutes everything you're saying and should lead to a little bit of soul searching? That his popularity is not random. You can learn something from it. It's not about his hair or the affinity that birds have for him. There's something substantive there. And considering that his base is the young base, it's the future of the party, maybe you should try to understand what is so appealing to the people that you're gonna try to appeal to for the next few decades.
And also, look, Sunny Hostin is actually a very smart woman. And so she understands how politics works in America and how unfortunately we have a two-party system and a third-party candidate has no chance. That's the system that we're under, right? So Bernie Sanders, yeah, he's a registered independent in Vermont. Guess what? No one cares. No one cares other than dishonest actors who keep citing that as a way to attack him when The reality is you should focus on the policies and try to understand why his policies are so popular and why they resonate with so many Democratic voters. In fact, let me give you some more information from that latest CNN poll. Sanders is also most often seen as the candidate who agrees with voters on the issues that matter most to them. Oh my God, but he's a registered independent. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Let me give you more. 30% say that Sanders compared with 20% for Biden, 15% for Warren, and 10% for Buttigieg. And as the candidate who best understands the problems facing people like you, 29% named Sanders as best on that measure, 18% for Biden, 17% for Warren, and 9% for Buttigieg. People are focused on policies because if you're not hosting a show like The View and getting paid a ton of money for essentially being really bad at your job, you're struggling to put food on the table for your kids.
Yeah.
And right now, there is one candidate who's doing an excellent job drawing attention to those issues.
Yeah.
Now, today on The View, there was an update in their commentary. Remember?
There was.
Yes, there was.
Okay, good.
Meghan McCain was bragging about how they were first in stating that Bernie Sanders is unlikable. But today she spoke very differently of how the country feels about Senator Sanders. Take a look.
We talked about Hillary Clinton's unfiltered comments about former rival Bernie Sanders, where she said, among other things, that nobody likes him and nobody wants to work with him. Today, she's getting a lot of backlash from some Democratic candidates like Andrew Yang, and says she's not sending a helpful message, and Tulsi Gabbard, who says she should, quote, grow up. This isn't high school. But, I thought everybody wanted her to be real.
Yeah, but then
now she's real, and everybody's like, shh.
Well, see, that's an example of how she can't win.
Yes.
No matter what the woman does, she can't win.
Yeah.
So, but maybe she just wants Joe Biden to be the nominee. And
or maybe
not
she
Bernie
just was
Sanders.
mad at Bernie because Bernie kind of.
Now, she's more calculated than that.
Well, she said it in the book. She said it in the book. This is not the beginning. This is not the first time we've heard this, but
And maybe she's being honest and maybe she's being transparent. And aren't we as a country tired of this opaqueness that we're seeing? Aren't we tired of a lack of transparency? And aren't we just coming off of what happened with Elizabeth Warren when she went up after the debate and said, "Did you just call me a liar on national television?"
It's incredible that the person who's being accused of lacking transparency is Bernie Sanders in the context of this conversation. It makes no sense. There is so much out there proving the consistency of Bernie Sanders, but more importantly, showing where he stands on the issues, which is the only thing that should matter. Have they paid no attention to this election whatsoever? You don't like Bernie Sanders because you don't like his socialist policies, just come out and say it. But making things up to justify your disdain for him, I think is pathetic and cowardly. And it makes you look ignorant. And it sucks because I don't think that Sunny Hostin is ignorant. I think I disagree with her vehemently when it comes to Bernie Sanders. But don't position yourself as this clueless person who doesn't know what's going on. You know what's going on. Be honest with your audience about how you just don't like Bernie because you don't like socialist policies. And then move on.
Yeah, that was such a dishonest game that they played there. Oh, you all said that she was being fundamentally inauthentic and not being real. And she even said back during the 2016 election, I have a public position on some things and a private position on those. And now she says something awful and now you don't like that either? Okay, let's be super clear. Yes, we want people to be authentic. But when they're authentic, we also don't want them to be awful, okay?
Exactly,
we want two things, actually. You can want more than one thing. Trump on that Entertainment Tonight bus, he was being honest and it was terrible. I want honesty and for you to not be terrible. I think most people can grasp that.
Right, and I think that it says something that Hillary Clinton is awful whether she's being inauthentic or authentic. We gotta take a break, we'll be right back.